2, 1. All right, James, go ahead.
So welcome to the Complete Streets Safety Committee meeting. And Justin, to clarify, you need me to read this whole slide?
This one.
Okay. This meeting is compliant with the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20 issued on March 17th, 2020, allowing for deviation of teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide the safest environment for staff, committee members, and the public while allowing for public participation. The public may participate via a Zoom web link and or by phone or by using remote public comment option. The committee may take action on any item listed on the agenda. Public meeting videos. Members of the public may view the Complete Streets Safety Committee meeting by logging into the Zoom meeting listed below. Complete Streets Safety Committee meetings can also be viewed live or on demand via the city's YouTube channel, YouTube/Brisbane CA, or on Comcast Channel 27. Archive videos can be replayed on the city's website, brisbaneca.org/meetings. To address the committee, when an item you are interested in appears on the agenda, you may address the committee at that time. If the matter you are interested in is not on the committee's agenda, but is a matter that is within the committee's subject matter jurisdiction, you may address it under public comment. Remote public comments. Meeting participants are encouraged to submit public comments in writing in advance of the meeting. The following email will be monitored during the meeting, and public comments received will be read into the record during oral communications or during an item. So the email is jyuen@brisbaneca.org. If you need special assistance, please reach out to this email or call 415-508-2139.
All righty. Let's do roll call. Let's see here. James Christie.
Present.
Linda Detmer.
Present.
Alex Bain. Kristen Cabrera.
Present.
Ernie Ibarra. Absent. Alex Lau.
Present.
And Patrick Tainer.
Present.
Showing the
Okay,
agenda.
James. Yeah, 1 sec.
Can you do everything?
Hold on a minute.
I take it everybody's had an opportunity to review the agenda.
Sorry, give me 1 moment to
Okay.
pull it up here.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
So could I get a motion, or are there any suggested changes to the agenda? If not, could I get a motion to approve the agenda as it was sent out?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as sent out.
Could I get a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Right.
Okay. And then we'll do a roll call vote. James Christie.
Aye.
Linda Detmer. Linda.
Looks like frozen, maybe.
Oh yeah, she is frozen. Okay, I guess we'll come back to her. Alex Bain.
Okay.
Christian Cabrera,
Aye.
Ernie Ibarra, Alex Lau,
Aye.
Patrick Tainer, and Linda Detmer.
I'm sorry I had to step out.
Oh,
So,
no worries. Was that an aye?
Sure.
We're voting to approve the agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you. Aye.
Okay. The agenda is adopted.
So, Justin, do we have any members of the public, or have you received any correspondence to be read into the record?
No, I haven't received any written comment, and there is no public present.
Duly noted. So now to move to the approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any additions or subtractions to the minutes as they were sent out?
Motion to approve.
Could I get a second?
Second.
Second.
Justin, could you do a
Okay.
roll call vote?
Sure. James Christie,
Aye.
Linda Detmer,
Aye.
Alex Bain,
Aye.
Christian Cabrera,
I'll mute.
Sorry. Aye.
Ernie Ibarra.
I don't have to call him.
Okay. That's what they do at my other committees. But
Oh,
anyway,
do they?
Yeah. Even if they're absent, they still read the name. Alex Lau
Aye.
and Patrick Tainer.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved.
Right. So the next item on the agenda is the election of a chair and vice chair. So our bylaws stipulate that we elect a new chair and vice chair every year. And so Linda and I have served in those roles for over a year now. And if I understand correctly, Linda, you're asking to step down from a leadership position. And is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm willing to consider, I'm definitely open to remaining in a leadership position. My preference would be to switch into the vice chair role and have another member of the committee step into the chair role. But obviously this is a matter we're going to decide amongst ourselves. So one thing I'm curious about is that are there other members of the committee who are interested in being a chair or who want to nominate someone for the chair position?
I
Linda's
would.
raising her hand.
We have someone on the committee who has served for, I believe, about 4 years. I've had the pleasure of working with him on subcommittees, and his contributions have been formidable. I hope that this year Pat Tainter will accept my nomination to be the chair of the Complete Street Safety Committee. Pat, what do you say?
This time I accept. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So we have a nomination for chair. Is there anyone else who'd either like to nominate themselves or nominate another member of the committee to serve as chair? So we have currently we have one candidate for chair, Pat Tainter. I'm in terms for vice chair, I'm happy to nominate myself to serve in the vice chair capacity.
Are we going to vote on Pat?
I was gonna get candidates first and then vote for both positions. That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there any other members of the committee interested in serving as vice chair or who want to nominate another member of the committee to serve as vice chair?
I would like to nominate someone. We have someone else on the committee who's changed the way we work and brought his excellent skills and eye for excellence to our table. And I hope that Alex Bain will accept my nomination for vice chair at this time. Alex?
Yeah, I would accept that nomination.
Okay. I think it's good to change things. Nothing personal.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any other nominations? All right. Then could we let's do a roll call vote for Pat Tainter as chair of Complete Streets.
Okay. James Christie. What, this is, hello?
He froze now.
Oh,
Frozen.
Justin, did you say something?
yeah, it's, oh, was I frozen too? No, okay, so we're doing the roll call vote
Oh,
for
yeah.
Patrick Tainter for chair. So we'll start James Christie,
Aye.
Linda Detmer,
Aye.
Alex Bain,
Aye.
Christian Cabrera,
Aye.
Alex Lau,
Aye.
and Patrick Tainter.
Aye.
Okay, congrats, Patrick. You're now the chair of the committee.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your support. Thank you. Thank you, Linda, for nominating.
Hey.
And for you've done a great job. We really appreciate your leadership this past year.
Thank you very much, Pat. I appreciate it.
I agree, James. I agree.
All right, so we have two candidates for vice chair. I'd be happy to continue serving, but I also see benefits of switching up and getting new blood into leadership. Alex, do you have a candidate statement or anything you'd like to say before we do a roll call vote?
I do not have a formal candidate statement prepared at this time.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So Justin, could you do a roll call vote for vice chair?
Okay. Let's see. How are we doing this?
I guess you'd either say Justin, Alex, or abstain, or James, Alex, or
Okay.
abstain would be my
Okay,
guess.
so you just list the name of the person who you're voting for.
Yeah, just say for each of the members of the committee, just say the name of the
Okay.
person you're voting for.
There's, or there'd be an option to, well, no, that's not open. I was gonna say do it in the chat, then that's not open.
What do you mean it's not open?
Well, I mean, the public doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, we should be transparent.
Oh, okay.
Transparent.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote then. James Christie,
I'm gonna abstain.
abstain. Okay. Hold on, let me make a list here. Linda Detmer,
Alex Bain.
Alex Bain.
I'll abstain as well. That's all right.
Okay. Sorry, one sec. Christian Cabrera. Hello, Christian?
You're muted again.
He's serious. Sorry about that. James Christie.
Okay. Alex Lau.
Alex Bain.
And Patrick Tainter.
Alex Bain.
Okay, so Alex Bain has the majority. So he is now the vice chair.
Congratulations, Alex. And thank you, James.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
James.
congratulations, Alex. Christian, thank you for the vote. And it's been an honor to serve as chair. I've had a lot of fun, but it's also great that we've got such a great committee that we have so many people who could serve in the leadership. So again, congratulations, Alex, and congratulations, Pat. And thank you for taking over leadership. And Pat, now that you're the chair, Justin, do you need to do anything to hand over the chair role to him in the meeting?
No, I don't think so, but I guess now he's going to.
He's gonna be Pat. You're gonna run the meeting now.
That sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
Let me adjust my volume here just a second. Okay. Why don't we move on then to approval of the minutes?
Oh, we already did that.
Oh, we already did. Sorry. Okay. Then let's move to old business. And let's start with the expansion of, say, pedestrian routes to schools. that was really in the realm of staff at the moment. Justin, did you have things to add?
So just looking at the last minutes, it looks like you had expressed interest in meeting with Karen and me to talk about the future direction for this. Were you waiting on us to
Okay, yeah.
The
Let's
part,
take action
other
first?
piece was with the walkways. So we have put in capital improvement projects, you know, kind of a list of projects for walkways. It's kind of a dance. It's hard to fund them just within the city to build all these walkways. They're, you know, they're in utility easements, they're expensive, and there are grants that are out there. And I think you diminish your chance to get a grant if you say you're going to fund it yourself. If it's already funded, you're not as applicable to get someone else's money. So we put them on the list. I don't know what council will review the CIPs in June. I'm not sure if they'll fund one or many of them or what, but we're still definitely keeping our ear to the ground in terms of grants, regional grants that would qualify, and try to get some of those walkways that we've already identified, get them built. So that part, yeah, is on staff and is on our mind.
Do you need more input from us on our recommendation? I know we fine-tuned them here since the last meeting, and you know, we made the change in terms of going up the hill. So do we need to meet again before it goes to council?
Well, no, we talked about, well, no, I think that's ready to go to council, but we talked about, are there other things beyond just the walkways that could connect people, kids to schools and people in neighborhoods that don't have good pedestrian access? You know, are there further projects that we want to look at, other sidewalks, bike improvements?
Okay.
You know? That's
Why
kind
don't
of,
we get together then this month? That's kind of looking then towards future branching out of the project, right? And so,
yeah.
okay. Why don't I send out an email tomorrow to everyone to see what works schedule wise, and then we can go from there.
I have a question. What's the approach to you know, for suggesting something for the council? I guess, you know, do you have so you don't know how much any of these walkways are going to cost. So when you suggest some of them, it's just based on the recommendation or criteria that we put in, you know, that the committee put in, but you don't have it. You don't know the feasibility of it right now, right?
Well, we did do advanced planning level estimate. We call it a planning level estimate. So we don't have you know, any quotes, bids from contractors, but based on other previous bids and known costs, we've come up with ballpark amounts to fund to build those. The ones in central Brisbane.
You know,
So
is that something that like I don't recall right now, but there was one, I think, by Mono Street, the one that had, I guess, all the bells and whistles, you know, the railing, the lighting, it was paved and it was a little steepy and flat. How much was that one to build it that way? Or are you using that one as a threshold?
yeah, that one's not a good example because we didn't change the steps. The steps were there from, I don't even know how long. You know, the Bicentennial Walkway was built, what is it, 30 something years ago now, or almost 30 years ago. So I don't know, I think the mono was built that long ago, but we were able to do the railing and solar lighting there. So the solar lighting didn't require wiring, didn't require connecting to PG&E, and all of that was just 50,000. But these ones that are covering shallow utilities and have nothing there are, you know, almost, they're in the order of magnitude of like 8 times as much as that. But they're gonna be more, the mono one is, those steps are pretty narrow. So it's not the ultimate, you know, it's not the ideal walkway.
Okay.
So if we're gonna put a concrete steps over existing utilities, we've gotta, in some cases, we have to move them. In some cases, we have to make sure they're repaired because we're not gonna have access to those utilities, which really is what those city properties easements were put in for originally, was the utilities. And then everybody said, oh, here's this perfect way to get from one street to another. Why don't we put some stairs in? So we might have a water line, a sewer line, a storm drain line in that space.
Yeah, I mean, those are very good points. I guess the design has to adapt to the terrain where the walkway is. So that that makes sense. I just from our work, we realized that those were the desired ones, but obviously depends how the terrain is going to be too.
Yeah, and luckily the last round council did fund the design of a couple of those. So having a design helps us get a better idea of what the construction cost is too. And it also makes the project appealing because, hey, we've got this ready to build. We just need the money. Give us the money to build it. We can turn it around in like, a year, 2 years. That's appealing from those that award grants,
Right. Are you also asking the council to maybe set a budget for labeling and maybe promoting some of these walkways, or is just straight for building the ones that it was decided to prioritize?
We didn't. That's a good point. We got this assignment after to prepare what the staff level, like what are the projects you want to include since our last meeting, and Justin and I put our heads together and we didn't think about adding that. Although, in some sense, we're told like a capital improvement project is something tangible that's built that the city has as infrastructure and has to actually ensure in case it fails and something happens and you need to put it back. If it's a smaller maintenance or operational thing that comes out of just the operating budget, and that happens next year. So it's an alternate year to do capital projects and operating special projects in the operating budget. So maybe that's more appropriate for that. Maybe we should talk more about that on the subcommittee, is what we want, and come up with a number for that. Good idea.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
The Mono Street walkway, the narrow one, being that it's already existing, is it utilized much or underutilized, or does anybody know?
Obviously, I don't know. I think, I've heard that people use it when the railing and the lighting was put in, and council did identify that and put some money towards that. So I don't know if it was being requested. I don't know. We haven't counted enough to know this one's used more than that one, or this one would be used. That's the catch-22. Is sometimes on these grants, they want data. Well, how many more people are going to walk once you build this walkway? Well, it's really hard to know that,
Well, I think that I have used that one for Halloween. When we go around for trick or treat, I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, my wife and I use that one, and we use all the walkways in town.
Okay.
Do you see a lot of other people on?
I rarely see other people on the walkways just because our town's so small, but I definitely know people use them.
One thing when we were like inventory all these walkways, that was somewhat uncomfortable in a way. Some of them have some pretty bad barking dogs. And you get intimidated. because you cut through through the houses, to the backyards of the houses, and some of the dogs could be really loud and scary.
Are they
But that's
enclosed, Christian? Are they
What was
contained?
that?
Are the
Yeah,
dogs?
they are contained. But I mean, I was with my son, and he was, he wouldn't want to walk on it. And I was like, it's okay, there's a gate over there.
Mhm.
He's not going anywhere.
You're never
But
sure.
still.
The dog might have dug a way under his fence or something. Well, that sounds like we could talk about that with the subcommittee too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christian.
We'll schedule the get together then. All right, why don't we move on then to education outreach regarding safe pedestrian routes? Christian, do you have anything?
I mean, unfortunately, I did miss last month meeting, but the email that Justin sent with the map and bullet point, the whole abandoned shop and introducing the routes, I thought it was good. I'm not sure if he was submitted to the principals and they started to submit it to the families and the kids. So I'm not sure where that left off.
No, not yet. I need to circulate that around staff and just make sure that we all, on our end, take a look at it and make sure that it's appropriate to send to the schools to post. But as far as as far as school reopening, that's something that I wanted to ask you, Christian, if you knew anything about that, because I haven't gotten any updates from the school district yet about that.
Yeah, so having a son that goes to Littman, I'm not sure about the other school, but it seems like the school they're going to start, or I mean, it's not going to be like 100% of the kids going back to school, but right now there are some kids that are going to in-person school, and April 15th there's going to be a lot more of them going to school. So that's the news that we're getting, and we're getting ready for it and all that.
April, middle of this month?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'll check in with the principals and see if they're ready to send out the other article that I had sent them, that they were waiting until getting closer to reopening to publish in the newsletter. So I'll check with them about that.
Yeah, things are opening it up already.
And it's a hybrid schedule, you said, right?
Right now there is, like, the kids that are not doing too good, with the Zoom lectures. So some of those are being brought to school. But then by April 15, if you opted out to stay home, I think you still have the choice to do that. But the majority of them they're going to be going back to school for in-person lecture.
Okay. Good to know.
All right. Let's move on to sightlines at intersections. Ernie is not here today.
I want to jump in on this one. I don't know if anybody was watching the council meeting first, I guess. They asked staff to bring the work plans to council to adopt them, officially. It's the first time we've done that, I think. And Mayor Cunningham asked that we add to this item, or that the Complete Streets Committee study, if we're not looking even at all the other ones, San Benito at Glen Parkway. Did anybody happen to be watching the council meeting when that was discussed? She mentioned that it's a path that she travels a lot. I guess she has a rental property and it causes her to go, down San Benito. And they're at that corner, if a van or a truck parks, my understanding was that it was on Glen Parkway uphill the intersection. So I'm not going to tell you which corner north. That it was really difficult to see out and make that turn, which is kind of what most of these intersections are on for. So she's asking that we look at that particular one because she's observed kind of a continuous problem there. I believe it was.
Is it
uphill
here?
direct- I think it was, well, no, I thought it was Glen Parkway in the uphill direction. That was my understanding.
Glen Parkway in the, you mean this way?
Yeah,
So like this, so this corner, for example.
yeah.
So is she turning from,
Yeah, I think she's going both directions, so coming back on San Benito and trying to get onto Glen Parkway.
Oh, okay.
okay,
So,
We can look at that.
yeah.
yes, absolutely.
So just based on the last minutes, I noticed that the proposed completion deadline that Ernie and Linda and Patrick had proposed is May 2021, which is next month. So do you want to revise that deadline, or I mean, any thoughts on that?
I think we do. Linda, what do you think?
Well, Ernie's the lead, and I think we should ask him or refer it to him, but since he's not here, maybe we should revise it since that's next month. What do you
Yeah.
think?
This one's been on so long, maybe it can. I would like to. Can you two focus on this intersection, and then we're just gonna kind of
Yeah,
Sure.
gray
Linda,
this out.
you
With
want
that,
to, both of
yeah.
us take a look at that and be able to report back by the next meeting?
Sure,
And
that'd be great.
in the interim, maybe we can get a hold of Ernie and kind of decide how this project will move forward, or
Okay,
maybe putting the parking lot for a while.
Okay,
I'd be happy to.
Great.
Thank you.
We'll do that.
can you bring it back to the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, enhancements to shuttle stops. That's Alex Bain and I. In the last month, we had asked for Justin to see if there was more data available from shuttle.org. And they did come back with 2 additional months of data, or more than 2 months during the COVID shutdowns. And as we look at that, things are radically different from what they were before. So our thought from that is that we cannot draw any conclusions as to what that might say for the future. That being the case, the question was I'm trying to remember the number, was it 240?
Mhm, yeah.
Yeah, Valley Drive, that we're looking for an alternative stop to recommend. And I think at this point, we can't reach a conclusion on that. Alex, did you have any thoughts?
No additional thoughts on that, but I can echo the sentiments. I mean, ridership is so low right now. It's kind of hard to draw conclusions about how it's going to change afterwards. So it's a little difficult to make a recommendation on where to put improvements when there's such low ridership right now.
Okay, so that being the case, I think we would just stay we'd like to recommend that we just focus on the one on San Bruno that we have funding for, or sorry, that we don't have funding for, but that is feasible. And then I believe the one right across from City Hall was also feasible.
Yeah, so those two, we were planning on having a contractor come out to pour the concrete pads. So, and then later on, we would install a bench at San Bruno and Mendocino at that location, and a bench shelter at 140 Valley across from City Hall. But unfortunately, we had a little bit of a minor setback because the shelter for 140 Valley that I had proposed that we install, I discussed it with our public works director, and we determined that that shelter model is not actually ADA compliant. So right now I'm just taking a look to see if there are shelter models out there that are ADA compliant that can fit in that footprint next to the sidewalk, where in the location that we're planning to make those improvements at 140 Valley. So once we get that figured out, then we can move forward with the concrete work. And once more funding becomes available, we can work on installing the benches and the shelters and anything else that we can fit in those two locations.
What are the issues with the shelter and ADA?
So an ADA compliant bus shelter has to have room not only for the bench for someone to sit down on, but it also has to have a clear space for a wheelchair to be able to fit. Because if it's not ADA compliant, we can't cover the able-bodied person sitting down and leave the wheelchair out in the rain. So the ADA compliant shelter has to have room to cover, able-bodied and people in wheelchairs. So there are some models, shelter models out there that do, if you've ever seen the Samtrans bus stops, those types of shelters do have room for both, but those are really big and expensive. So I'm looking into alternative models that are cheaper and a bit simpler, but still meet those requirements.
Okay.
It's just a matter of picking the right one to fit in that footprint, because there isn't a whole lot of room that we have next to the sidewalk.
Okay, that sounds good.
And once we move forward with something, I'll report back to the committee on that.
So, we had talked about taking things that are working behind the scenes or finished or dormant off the agenda. So this one, since we aren't expecting to report more, we'll take this off the agenda. Is that correct?
That's right. Unless we do have something to report for next month. Otherwise,
If a staff update could be in staff updates, not.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So yeah,
That
so
sounds great.
unless the subcommittee has something to report, we'll take this off for now.
Okay. That sounds
Do
great.
you have any images or pictures of these models that you're talking about?
Yeah, I can actually pull it up. They're actually smoking
Take one and-
shelters, if you can believe it. But yeah, they make ADA compliant smoking shelters. Which can also function as bus stop shelters.
I just went to try images.
There's a particular model that I was
Oh,
looking at. What was the company called? It's called hold on. No. Oh, okay. I think it might have been this one. Yeah, so this is an example of something that if you can see, so it does have room for a bench, and next to that bench there's an open space for a wheelchair to go. So something like this, I think, can could work. It's small enough to fit, you know, in the pad. I just need to clarify with the manufacturer that this this opening is actually wide enough to meet ADA standards, which in ADA standards require this the wheelchair space to be at least 30 inches wide.
Pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the name.
So it's not
Smoking shelter.
so it's not quite as you know, aesthetically appealing as the last model that I considered that I showed you a while back. But you know, it's functional and it'll be ADA compliant. So that's, you know, that's the important thing.
Are the walls glass? I can't tell from the picture.
I can't tell either. It does look like the sides are glass. I'm not sure. I mean, the back must
It says quarter-inch thick, tempered safety glass.
Yeah, so I imagine on 3 sides that's 3 sides enclosed. That's what it says. Yeah. So
Okay, good.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
glass on
good,
one side.
good.
Yeah.
That would be good. That'd be a
So,
great
yeah,
improvement there.
if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
yeah.
nothing, if there's nothing more on that, we'll move on to potential parking issues in central Brisbane. James?
Yeah, so the subcommittee has been meeting a few times with staff. As everybody knows on the committee, we essentially had a brainstorming session during our last meeting, and we got a list of potential solutions in which we could address the parking issues in central Brisbane. And the subcommittee kind of narrowed it down into solutions we're going to investigate further that are feasible. And so those are parking permits limited to a certain number per address, a financial incentive to residents to clear out their driveway or their garage space, extend white edge lines where feasible to increase legitimate parking areas, dedicate more resources to enforcement for parking violations and towing, and considering raising citation fines, education about car share / alternative modes / a car buyback program, and street sweeping time restrictions on all residential streets. So we're going to investigate these further, but really our next steps is we want to start engaging the public, and we plan to do that twofold. We're going to start advertising for a public meeting, ideally sometime in May, where we can invite the public to hear their thoughts on parking in Brisbane and get their thoughts on these potential solutions. And we're also going to do a survey, which we're going to advertise and send out to residents. We're doing this for multiple reasons, but anything we implement, we want there to be some community buy-in. And also when we pass on recommendations to council, we kind of want to give them a general idea that these ideas have some support behind them. So that's the gist of what we've been up to and what we will be doing. Anything the subcommittee members want to add, or staff?
So for the development of the questionnaire survey, is that something, James, you want to meet with the subcommittee about to get started, or do you want staff to sort of get started and then to discuss with the subcommittee, a draft with the subcommittee?
I mean, my thoughts was that our next subcommittee meeting would be kind of like a working meeting where we come up with the survey. but I'll definitely defer to the other subcommittee members. We can also hand it off to staff. Those were my thoughts.
I think Linda might be frozen again.
She doesn't. She's
Linda?
moving.
Oh.
So what I was thinking is, if each of the members of the subcommittee and the staff could stay after, unless staff, you really want to take this on, why don't we schedule a time in the next week or two to meet as a subcommittee as kind of a working meeting, where we can kind of draft the survey. Unless staff, you feel very strong, unless Justin and Karen, you guys feel really strongly that you guys can do it much more quicker and efficiently. Justin and Karen, what do you guys think?
No, I think the subcommittee works. I was raising my hand to say, not to throw us off course or anything, but maybe as we, in the fall, it sounds like, are going to be able to have some kind of in-person events. You may have seen in the blast that Park and Rec is planning some concerts in the park in September, because I guess if we move into yellow, we can do the yellow tier, we can do things like that. It may be too far in the future, but tabling at something like that and talking to people might be something to think about. It's, it's a ways out, so that's not good. But if we don't have clear feedback in that amount of time, or we don't get a lot of feedback.
It could be a plan B if we don't get a lot of feedback, but yeah, I'd really like to. I definitely want to try to have this wrapped up by the fall. Because we've been working on this at least since August, full steam. So yeah, I definitely want to get something to council sooner rather than later.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be.
So we'll stay on.
Yeah, so if the staff and members of the subcommittee can stay on after the meeting, and we'll figure out a calendar day to meet and draft the survey. And also, if this works for you and the vice chair, Pat, we wanted to devote a significant amount of the next meeting, which we'll advertise to the public, to eliciting public feedback on this.
Okay, so
I think we can do that for sure.
Okay.
My only concern is that since the survey has not gone out yet, are we allowing enough time for it to be put together, distributed, get response and analyze it before we have a public meeting?
That's a good thought. And we can also push it to June. I prefer not to do it over this, I prefer to do it at the very latest by June, because then we start hitting the summer months. And yeah, the more voices we get from the public, the more people who know that we're thinking about this, I think the better.
And
Okay.
that's
sounds good.
an interesting point, is like you get the in-person or the Zoom meeting feedback combined with the survey feedback, and some of it's different people and some of it's the same people, but you kind of want to see all of it.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah,
We could definitely revisit having an in-person meeting depending on what we get from the survey and how many people show up. I don't know. I anticipate that if we advertise it well, that we'll get quite a few people for a virtual meeting. That's just my hunch.
Yeah, and if we do, if we do actively invite the public to the next meeting, that doesn't have to be the only meeting we do with the public. We can have a series of, we can do one before the survey, maybe another one after the survey, something like that. This doesn't have to be the last meeting that we actively have ask the public to come and comment.
Can I ask what forms of outreach we'll be using to get the public to attend this meeting?
Well, that's a good question.
I think we need to advertise it in the Star and on the Blast. And if we could even get something on the signboard. And are we allowed to advertise this stuff like on Facebook, like Citizens of Brisbane?
Well, I think Linda's broken ground there, so.
Oh yeah.
Linda posted, everyone will comment.
I think if we hit those 4 areas, I think.
Or,
we'll-
you know, another thing is that we posted on City of Brisbane Facebook, and then someone reposts it, migrates it over to
Mm.
residents.
That's a good idea. That's a great idea. And Nextdoor is pretty popular too.
Yeah, good point.
Yes.
Do you think you have also a mechanism knowing how many people are going to attend it, like you know, reserve, whatever?
Do we have to do that? You know,
You
So
never
if you
can
do it,
tell, Christian. It's kind of hit and miss.
yeah, I don't know if you can RSVP, because this is a noticed public meeting that anybody is allowed to attend without telling us in advance. Tonight, council meeting, that's how they work, you know.
Didn't
Yeah, I mean,
the design elements meeting ask people to pre-register or something?
That wasn't the same thing. That wasn't run by committee or a commission or a council. You know.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
the way that these, so now that we're broadcasting live, we're no longer in the Zoom meeting format. We're in the Zoom webinar format. So what happens on the back end is that if a member of the public wants to attend the meeting, well, there's two groups of people in the Zoom webinar. There's the panelists, who are us as the staff and committee members, and then the attendees are the members of the public, and they have to request, they have to make a request to speak during the meeting. So they're not actually, you know, with us as far as, you know, showing their cameras. They're just allowed to request to speak, and then I'm able to allow them to do so. So it's a bit more formal, as opposed to the Zoom meeting where everyone was, you know, in one group. So that's sort of the way it works now. So we can, you know, if there are a lot of people who attend it, we're able to take their comments in a more organized way.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, if nothing more on parking, then let's move on to investigating potential for slow streets on the named streets. Linda?
I'm going to let you take the lead on this, Pat, and I'll help you out.
Okay, well, we really did this together. And Linda put out a survey that garnered just tremendous feedback. And I guess I would say the overwhelming response was that is not a good idea for Brisbane.
Very
Or-
unpopular.
Did they, do you mind showing us what your post was, what the wording was, or could you read it out loud?
Have it handy. I really don't have it handy, and I don't have a way to access it because I removed the post and copied it and sent it to Pat, and I don't have a copy.
If
Okay.
we have the time, I'll go look through my emails and find it. Do you want me to do that?
I don't think we
Or
need
we
to do
can-
it at the meeting.
Yeah, we can, if you could send that to me offline, just so I can take a look
Yeah,
at it. And if you
you
could
bet.
show us some of the responses. And then
The
maybe,
responses were very, very adamant about not creating slow streets here. We don't have the type of street layout for it. And it would create problems on other streets with more traffic. And the interesting thing that came from the responses is that people would really like to see speed limits lowered to 15 throughout town. And I don't know if that's possible legally, but perhaps we can make an exception. We'd like to, Pat and I, correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, but we'd like to investigate that more.
Yes.
Also, enforcement of speeding was a big issue. So, and I believe there was probably 20 some responses, I'm not sure. And And yeah, slow streets are not popular.
I think a lot of the issues, some people felt it really wouldn't do anything for them. And then from our perspective, except for a couple of the streets in the very central part of town, there's no parallel route for people to take if we were to close down a street. Whereas like in San Francisco on a grid, there are multiple parallel streets that can divert traffic to. When you close or slow down a street and force all that traffic elsewhere, and if it only has one street to go to or two, that puts, I think, an increased burden on that street.
That and the fact that people pointed out that we have a mountain to enjoy, and lots of places to walk, and a park and a skate park and a basketball park, and that there's sufficient outside opportunities for children and people. So all of that factored into, they don't want it.
So Linda and I would like to continue on the thought of looking at whether enforcement in residential streets and or lowering speed limits on residential streets, not necessarily school streets. That seemed to be things that were of interest or supported by the
In general, a
responses.
slower moving town.
I think that might be a good thing to get into a little bit more at the next meeting, and maybe we want to see if Commander Garcia can also be here for that.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Because it's,
Sounds good.
you know, it's not a snap of the finger, so.
Right. I remember that with Commander Meisner, when lowering speed limits on certain streets came up for, that there were some legal reasons that it couldn't be done. But my question to staff would be something that I don't know the answer to, and that's the federal government can set laws. The state cannot go outside of those, but can make them tighter. And I believe that a city can even make them more tight if they want to. I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
Are you asking this question in regards to the speed limit? Like what?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
if I remember this coming up before, and what I remember from Commander Meisner is there's this legal precedent that you do a speed study, and if like 85% of the cars kind of naturally go a certain speed, you can't really lower it. You could officially lower it, but if somebody got a ticket and then fought it in court and provided the speed study data, it would be ruled in favor of the person who got the ticket. So that's if that's what I remember when Commander Meisner brought this up
I
the last
remember
time we
that
discussed
also,
this.
James.
Yeah.
And my problem with that is that if everybody's doing 35 on San Bruno Avenue, does that mean we raise the speed limit? And then if we raise it, are they going to go faster and we need to raise it again? Or can we just
I'm not saying I agree with this, but Aaron has something she wants to say.
Two parts. The vehicle code tells you that certain streets have a prima facie a set speed. So a business district, a residential zone as defined are 25 miles an hour. For other streets that don't fit in that category, a speed survey is done and the 85th percentile sets the speed. That survey allows engineering judgment to adjust and set a speed different than the 85th percentile speed. But it's the court and police could then write tickets, but it's the court and the judge who ultimately decides whether they like what we did in our engineering study or not. And, you know, we have on Monterey Street, we have 15-mile-per-hour signs, and we recorded a, I don't know if we ever did re-record that survey though. So we perform a survey, it's stamped by an engineer. We might use a consultant. Sometimes we've done them in-house. Sometimes we've used a consultant, and it's filed at the court. So if someone goes to protest that ticket, the judge pulls out that study and decides whether they want to, you know, back it up or not. And so that's why I was asking to have Commander Garcia, because he's the one that would know how many of those get overturned and how many don't, and whether our police have kind of thrown up their hands because they're all getting overturned, and it's more of a guide than it is a hard enforceable number.
That makes
And I think
sense.
even with an engineering study, it's really not a hard and fast speed limit, you know, because the judge might rule differently. They're going to say 15 miles per hour, that's crawl, you know, they have a different perspective about it, and they're not out on that block seeing what's happening, you know.
Maybe,
Well,
maybe not 15, but 20, you know, when the rest,
Or certain
I mean,
streets.
people
But we're
exceed
not
it.
going to decide by
That-
committee what
no.
the speed limit is, right?
Yeah,
You know,
that,
so
that sounds good.
let's get him back, and we can explore that a little bit more, but I'm curious to hear on that side. I haven't really heard from them how well enforcement's going. Types.
I think also you don't want to have inconsistency. You know, you don't want to have like a set of street with a different speed limit, and then another one is just going to be confusing.
But we do have that for those that aren't prima facie. They're all determined by the speed study. So Mission Blue Drive, which is on the agenda later, is 35, and Tunnel Avenue is 35, but Bayshore is 45, and Guadalupe is 50. They are all different. So that's, and the other piece of the vehicle code is that they did with this difficulty in lowering speed limits below 25 in a residential area. Code was written that said, if you're in that school zone, 500 feet, you can set the speed at 15 or 20 if conditions warrant it. So you don't have to back it up with that study that a judge could overturn. Those are hard numbers through the vehicle code. That's why we did all those streets that we did.
Right. And that condition is that it's 15 miles an hour only when children are present, you know, only during school hours, not on weekends, not on holidays, just when kids are expected to, you know, to be there to get to school.
Yeah, not the whole school day, but when they're coming.
Right.
Well, we appreciate all the input, and Patrick and I will certainly put our heads together and see what else.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That sounds good.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out to the
Thanks for getting all that feedback. And it's interesting that people generally didn't want slow streets in town, but I guess, you know, that's what that is what it is.
Did you just ask about slow streets, or did you also ask about one way?
Both, actually. I think it was explaining slow streets and that they would only be available to traffic that lived on that street. And then I can't remember exactly what I wrote. It's been a while.
I don't remember it either.
Yeah, and one-way streets, I think that might have been mentioned, but I can't tell you right now.
I'll find the email and send it to all of us.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Okay, why don't we move on to new business then? Potential speeding issues on Mission Blue. I think the question was whether those signs have a reporting ability.
Yeah, so the radar feedback signs on Mission Blue, those don't have a data capturing capability. Those are just there to you know, to measure the speed that an approaching vehicle is coming, and to flash if the car is going over 25, to flash the speed on the display.
That's good to know.
But that's the only function that it has.
So I brought this up last month about if the issue of safety on Mission Blue Drive, because in my experience, when even I first moved to Brisbane and lived off of Mission Blue Drive, there's a lot of people speed on Mission Blue Drive, coming from Guadalupe Canyon as well as coming from Altamont. And there's a crest right at Checker Spot Lane, and that's also where there's a crosswalk to the small park there and to the clubhouse and to the that area. And I always thought with my kids, like going to to the park or something like that, that it was although there might not be a lot of traffic there, that it's kind of a dangerous intersection because cars are speeding and they might not see that crosswalk till kind of when they come up onto that crest, and potential for an accident. And so I wanted to look into, one is, is there a need to examine or investigate if there's a lot of speeding going on in Mission Blue Drive, and if there is, what are the potential solutions in remedying that?
So I'll talk about the history. We did have other requests up here from some neighbors, a couple neighbors, about the crossing. So I wasn't sure in your case, Alex, and it sounds like it's pedestrian crossing more than necessarily you driving, and that issue is a bit about the Checker Spot Drive and the pedestrian crossing in Mission Blue. And that was the request a few years ago. And the improvements that you can see in the street view with well, they're not ladder style, right? Piano key, high visibility crosswalks, and the floppy ped crossing sign, and those radar signs were all put in as a result of those requests. And it is understandable that it's sort of a wide open road without, there's a couple of intersections and not a lot of traffic on it. It's pretty easy to speed there. So I think that there are a couple of ways. Justin and I talked a little bit about, there's more traffic calming. So these are traffic calming measures that we put in, and we kind of think that you don't just dump everything in the toolbox at once because people ignore something. You put something in and it gets their attention, and then you try something else if it doesn't work after a while. So we're looking, and we can also ask the police to do, it's called problem-oriented policing. They put a focus on that area and see if they write some tickets. Sometimes that discourages people from speeding. So I don't know which we landed on in terms of, should we collect data first, or are we going to see if the police can give it some attention?
I think we can do that simultaneously. I think, well, no, wait, we can't do it simultaneously. That'll skew the data. But I don't think it would hurt to put out the traffic counters for a week or so at first, just to see what, just to get a general idea of what the typical speeds are, and if they really are, well in excess of the 25-mile-an-hour limit there. If we find that the data does show that it's in excess of 25, then that's kind of that would be a red flag, I think. And so I think that's a good place that we can start is just getting the counters.
How would they capture that data with those mobile units that are like the radar guns that flash your speed? And well, they were able to capture data that way.
Yeah, it's not a radar gun, but it is a radar device that can be strapped to a pole on the side of the road. And what that does is it counts the number of cars and it measures the speed that they're going past in both
that
directions.
Case, people aren't aware that it's being recorded necessarily.
Yeah, they're not as visible as the tubes that you sometimes see that are laid out across the road. These are the radar counters are more inconspicuous.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
I guess we can start with that, and we'll see what the data shows, and and we'll report back once we have that.
I guess the other piece was, should the committee think about forming a subcommittee to meet and talk about this and review the data, or do you want us to bring it at the next meeting and then decide whether it needs, a subcommittee approach?
What does everybody think on that?
I think if we look at if we have the data, and then depending on on the numbers, then go forward if a subcommittee needs to be formed to look at it more in depth, as well as present possible solutions.
Okay. Justin, do you think we could have data by the next meeting? Is that enough time to do the kind of work?
Yeah, I think so. I'll work with police and we'll get that out there. And we should have the data ready for next month.
Will they be able to capture data going both ways on Mission Blue? So
Yeah.
Traffic coming from Guadalupe as well as coming from below from Altamont.
Yeah, it's bidirectional.
I have a question.
They do variety of times and days, so they get a good just statistical distribution.
Yeah, so typically we leave that out there for a week, so that'll capture the weekend and all of the weekdays. And I think at this point in the pandemic, we're sort of, we're seeing traffic continue to increase. I think we're relatively close to where we were pre-COVID. I mean, at least within the last year, we're as close as we're gonna get. We're as close as we can get with to pre-COVID traffic patterns. So I think that I think now is an appropriate time to be able to get that data again.
Okay. Jessica, is there a possibility that if the data is collected prior to our next meeting, we can maybe take a look at it so we're prepared to talk about it?
Sure. So you'd like me to send that out before the next meeting?
I would, if everyone is okay with that.
Yeah,
Like that.
Yeah,
I think
that'd be
that's a
great.
good plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. If nothing more on that, then shall we move on to staff updates?
Sure. So, in case you haven't noticed, the mast arm and the pole at Bayshore and San Bruno, unfortunately, hasn't been installed as of now. So what happened was last month, we had the contractor out there and they installed the pole, and then they proceeded to install the arm that attaches to the pole. And unfortunately, they found that the bolts on the arm didn't line up with the bolt holes on the pole. So the pole was manufactured incorrectly, which is why they didn't line up. So the parts are, so we had to take it down, and the parts are at our laydown yard now, and we're waiting on the manufacturer to produce a new pole, one that meets specification. And once we have that delivered, then we can install it, and hopefully everything will go well. But unfortunately, this was a bit of bad luck that the manufacturer didn't manufacture it correctly, and so unfortunately that work is going to be delayed. At this point,
Is that pole somewhere in the future, do you think?
yeah. So at this point, I don't have a target. I don't have a schedule for when that's going to be ready. But once we do have a date set, we will post about it on social media and let you guys know as well that when that work will be done. But at this point, I don't have a scheduled date. it depends on how quickly the manufacturer is able to fabricate a new one.
I
But that-
imagine there was some installation costs incurred in putting up the incorrectly manufactured pole.
Yeah,
Is the manufacturer going to cover that for us?
well, it's
We're working that out.
yeah, it's something that we can ask. I can't guarantee that they're gonna, that they're going to take that up, that we're gonna be able to back charge them.
Do we get to keep
We'll
the
see.
pole that didn't work?
See, that's what I said.
Unless you want to, unless you can, unless you can find another use for it, if you want it to,
I bet we
if you'd like
can.
to.
And make a different arm,
Yeah,
Scrap
an
metal.
arm that fits.
yeah, no, it's, I know we would if because here's the thing, the arm was correctly manufactured. It met spec, the pole didn't. So if it had been the other way around, we could have left the pole up and just, made a new arm and attached that onto it. But now we have to go back and install both pieces. So, it is what it is.
Mhm.
But somehow in that research, I noted, or maybe because we were looking at what we're going to do with traffic during the time, is that both Google Maps and Apple Maps do show the no left turn now. They don't direct
Yes.
people to come down San Bruno and turn left on the Bayshore. So
That's
So,
great.
so Alex Bain, if you had
That is
anything to do
great,
with that
yeah.
on the Apple side, thank you for
Yeah.
making that happen.
How do they get notified in a normal or an official sense?
we tried to notify them officially, but what we understand is that it's used once people stop making the movement, then I don't know if they investigate or that their algorithm adjusts, or
Okay.
it's obfuscated to those of us that are not coding people.
It's a mystery.
Alex did it.
Yes, of the Apple side.
Let's see. I only have one other update, which is that City Hall has, as of last month, has recently opened back up to the public for in-person services. So our hours are 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays. So other than that, that's it for me. Karen, did you have any other updates?
I don't have much, but to speak a little bit further on the COVID side, I've been hearing from management that they're hoping that staff might be able to be in the office full-time, except they anticipate some people wanting to work from home a little bit, but still being able to open fully after the 4th of July, when I guess, the president is saying they expect things to get to a level. But in terms of committee meetings and council, they're looking at September-ish and forward. But I think for a committee of 7, that's not exactly worked out yet. It might be a hybrid where if people want to be in person, they can, and if they want to be remote, they can, or whether we're going to have plastic dividers. I think, we'd have to be pretty comfortable before all 7 of you sat up on the dais together. So
Mhm.
to be determined, but that's kind of what the next few months looks like.
What about at the staff table? It's nice and wide.
Yeah, we can, to
You It's Karen and I can be on the dais.
Okay.
Yeah.
it probably doesn't feel right to
Yeah, I know.
people watching, but
Yeah, it'll but if it, I don't, yeah, I guess we'll be working that out.
yeah. That's a good comment. Was that gonna be chair and committee member matters are we gonna talk about the plan?
Yeah, so I guess why don't we move on to chair and committee member matters?
Yes.
So Patrick, you had emailed staff about the succulent plants at visitation that we had looked at a while ago.
That cropped up on next door. Somebody noted that I think their child got quite injured, maybe an infection from being stuck. And I know we looked at it when we were starting the parking survey and kind of thought, well, what, but what do you think now?
I think, I remember Karen and I both still believed that they were dangerous at the time we looked at them. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yes.
Karen.
No, you're right.
I feel like they are, but again, I want to point out that neighbor, since we walked up there, I've seen a lot in my neighborhood. I think they're just like a really hardy plant that people are planting in their frontage. Because, you know, the city isn't set up in terms of resources to really do extensive maintenance on these planter strips. So this neighbor planted and watered and cultivated these and came out when we were looking at them and said, you know, kind of proud of what I've done here, or whatever exactly he said. So
That's great, but if a child is getting hurt, I can't in good conscience say it's fine.
Well, Pat, did you have a chance to reach out to the person who made the next door posting?
No, I did not. Do you think that's something we should do?
I mean, I think it's worth an inquiry. I mean, I don't want to sound like a cynical Sammy, but not everything posted on social media is reliable. I mean, I don't know what incentive this person would have to lie or embellish it, but I'd certainly like to hear more from the individual.
Okay.
are you suggesting that he just asks as a neighbor versus like, I'm the chair of the Complete Streets Committee?
I mean, I'll leave that up to Pat. I mean, but maybe you'll more likely get a response from this person if you identify yourself officially, Pat.
Yeah, I don't have, I guess what's the proper procedure here for doing
Well,
that?
I'm just concerned that if you say that, then they're gonna demand that these get taken out and you're gonna feel like you're in a corner regarding the issue, you know?
Right.
Oh, and
So
James is
is-
asking for more information at this point.
Is the city responsible for this vegetation on the area and the?
Sort
I
of a
don't
gray
know that I
area.
know the answer to that. If we didn't plant
It's city
it,
property,
but-
right?
Is that city property?
yeah,
where
it
those
is, but
plants
let's be clear, when you have a sidewalk in front of your house, your property doesn't come up to the sidewalk. Could be
Mhm.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10 feet of that is in the city right of way. But you develop your frontage and you put your driveway on it to connect to the street. And then the city allows you to improve your frontage in the city right of way because we're not using it for roads or utilities at this time. So that's why I'm saying it's kind of a gray area.
I
That
froze
depends on
for a
who-
moment. Are we talking about liability?
Yeah, it's just asking.
Well, or who cleans
Responsibility.
it up, or who's responsible
Yeah,
to,
it's respons-
for it being there or not being there?
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say is that I don't think resource-wise, the city can plant something and maintain it along all of these planter strips on Visitation in San Bruno. We've, in the past, I know we did try to plant other shrubs on San Bruno, some of those last, but there isn't irrigation there. You know, it's a lot of manpower to keep them watered, keep them weeded, keep them maintained. So then the neighbors have come and filled in with something that they either like or they think is easy to maintain. So, I mean, that could be a thing, is that the city comes in and rips them all out and plants, like, I think we did something like junipers or, you know, some non-invasive low shrubs on San Bruno Avenue. It would be.
These are succulents, and they're a sharp type of succulent. But the popularity of succulents has skyrocketed in the last several years because they're so drought tolerant. I mean, we've planted some. I've never watered them, and they just go great. But there are other varieties available that are not at all sharp that could be put there.
I agree.
Well, I guess, Pat, can you get more information and maybe not promise anything, just get some information.
Sure, I'll do that. And as the committee, Chair, you think?
Sure.
Well, we're a
I-
public meeting, so I probably have to. I mean, we've discussed this in public,
Yeah.
so that's the appropriate way to go.
This isn't the first time this has come up as an issue with,
committee.
people, yeah, with the committee, and people not happy with these sharp points. And they're beautiful plants, and I understand, that it brings beauty and life to that area, but if someone gets injured, that's just not worth it.
If I remember correctly, they do partially block the sidewalk.
Mhm.
It
A little bit.
narrows the walking space, if I remember correctly. I've only been there that one night.
For what it's worth, the last time I walked on it, they were neatly cut back and they weren't really encroaching on the sidewalk. This was maybe like a week or two ago.
Oh,
Oh, okay,
Just for what it's worth.
interesting. So maybe the homeowner has been, maintaining them.
I'm out of town. Can somebody go on the committee, go by there and let us know? I mean, somebody like Linda or James or even Justin or Karen. I mean, you saw it when we do the parking survey. If it looks like it's been cut back from when we saw it at that time. And I'll contact the next door post, the person who posted on next door.
I can do that. I don't know if I can do it tomorrow, but I can do it this week.
That sounds great.
Take
Thank
pictures.
you.
So is this the only driveway that is in question, or is this the driveway where reportedly that post on next door or that child was injured?
Well, I remember it being narrower than that.
Further down, I think.
Okay.
It kind of starts.
Closer to Madhouse.
Yeah, so I think those succulent plants, they start right about here and they go up to, I think this is the upper end of it.
And there was a little bit on Klamath too.
Yeah, just in front of Madhouse right here.
And no, the other side. Isn't there some on the other side?
You mean this one? No, I
Of
think
Klamath. Not visitation. Those are not succulents. Yeah.
They don't look like
Bunch.
it.
It's
Oh, yeah,
wider,
they-
but maybe it's wider, but there are some there.
oh, okay.
I'll take pictures of those also.
So is it in general the responsibility of the homeowner or of the city to maintain whatever foliage within that space, whether it be a thorny blackberry bush or a succulents or some daisies,
I guess again, it depends. I think it's the city planted it. It just depends in every case. So there would be, if the city planted it, you would think that they would maintain it. If the owner planted it, property owner adjacent, I think they would be expected to maintain it. If you were in court, it may be ruled a certain way. No, I think you could say, yes, this is city property. And if all of the community wants the city to plant something and maintain it, again, that's not free. So it would maybe take resources away somewhere else. Landscaping tends to be one of the things that's thought about and cut back when economic times are not as good. That's one of the first things that are looked at. So I'm thinking that, we planted trees in these tree wells and then nothing else. And these are neighbors that planted this. So I don't think there's been a ruling about this. And that's why we're talking about it, because it's not exactly clear cut in my mind.
Also,
Along Valley Drive, there's a grass planter strip between the sidewalk and the street. And it gets mowed very regularly, if I remember correctly. it looks to me like it's whoever does all the landscaping and, well, let me see. I think further up. Yeah,
On which side?
they're on the,
This? On the left?
yeah. And I think the landscaping company that does Valley Drive kind of takes care of it. At least it looks like it's the same people.
Well, that may not be clear. I don't think that we maintain that, but there is, the city uses for some of our sites, industrial park landscaping that kind of, you know, their business is, a lot of it is Brisbane and the industrial park. So they may be employed by a lot of the businesses, so.
Okay.
I'd like to interject that there's a group called G3 that has done a lot of nice stuff on Main Street. And, you know, they're volunteers. I believe they get volunteers to water what they plant. And, you know, maybe we could ask them to give us a hand if there's any changes that need to be done on a volunteer basis.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a great idea. And as long as the city, I don't think the city would mind if people volunteered to maintain, you know, vegetation on some city property, would they?
Right. No, in this case, on a street frontage, it's a great idea. And yeah, something that's less challenging.
There's a lot of volunteerism in Brisbane, and I admire that about it. I bet that there would be some helpers out there that would be willing to do this.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you. All right, I think we're finished with that topic. Are there any other chair or committee member matters to discuss?
I have one. I want to congratulate James and Mia Christie on their baby girl that's coming in June.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations, that's
Wow.
fantastic.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we're very excited. Yeah, so we're super excited.
It's wonderful.
Have you thought of any names yet?
We've picked out a name, but we're not gonna. That's gonna be the one surprise. I mean, she's a girl, but yeah, everyone will get her name or learn her name when she shows up.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
What's the due date?
June 12th. June 12th. So we're almost 2 months away.
Wow.
Yeah.
So exciting.
That's your first?
First. Yeah. And we've been
wow.
working on it for a while.
Oh, boy.
So we're glad she finally showed up.
That's pretty close to our June meeting.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll
They
know
get a
where you
live stream
are
from
if
the
you're not
hospital?
here.
Or-
we'll find out. I mean, yeah, that'll be an eventful week if we're talking parking then, and I'm like sleeping.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Fun times. Well, if anybody gets too angry, I can just pick up my daughter. It'll calm people down.
Just drop out and say, oh, my wife's going into labor, gotta go.
That's possible too. Yeah.
Bring her to the July meeting so we can see her.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely gonna introduce her at some point. Don't worry. I mean, yeah, that was part of the plan. Yeah. No worry. Yeah, you'll definitely get to meet her at least virtually.
That's wonderful, James.
Yeah, that is. Okay, the last thing I'd like to say again, thank you, James, and thank you, Linda, for leading us over the past year. We really appreciate it. And look
Pleasure.
forward to your continuing contributions to the committee.
And congratulations to you and Alex on taking the reins.
Thank you. Okay, the
Thank you,
next
Pat.
meeting is May 3rd.
Great.
Thank you. At 6:30 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
A second.
Do we need to roll call this, Justin, or
No.
just?
No, we
All in
don't.
favor, aye.
Yeah. Does anyone oppose?
All in
Anyone want to keep
favor?
talking?
Aye.
Barring opposition, we're adjourned.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good
Well,
night.
Stay safe.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
See, parking committee staying on, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Here, I'll stop recording. Oh, okay.
Okay, let me pull up my calendar. I was actually checking the YouTube page I were going, and we actually had 2 watchers at some point.
Oh, really?
Oh, you can see
Yeah.
that? Oh, because it has 2 views.
Yeah, you could actually go on YouTube and like see